Hello vinyl community, we are back. It's been a little bit of a while here. I think our last video was right around Halloween. So anyways, I want to get into some picks that I have gotten, recent finds that I've gotten over the last few weeks. And I've got a bunch of great stuff to share. I also got the Acid Archives book for my birthday from my wife, which is fantastic. We did a trip to LA as well for my birthday, and I got some finds there as well. So without further ado, let's jump into it. So I'm just going to show you the Acid Archives book. A lot of people are talking about this book. A lot of people are doing videos about entries and selections from the Acid Archives. It's an absolutely fascinating book to me. I've kind of had my face buried in it since I got it earlier in November. And one of the albums that I picked up that I'll be talking about is actually in this album, and we'll go ahead and read the excerpt from that when we get there. They kind of are blasting it a little bit, but you know, we gotta do what we gotta do. So anyways, let's move on to the first pick. It's a big one. This album is called Cressida. Just picked this one up recently. This is a prog grail. A lot of people that are into prog want this album. It's on the coveted Vertigo label, and Cressida was from the UK, and they only had 2 albums. This one's from 1970, and then they had another one in 1971, and they were considered the cult progressive group because they only had 2 albums right in the mainstay of prog. So this is a very coveted album, and it's the early Vertigo label. I will show you. It's fun here too, the Vertigo sleeve they come in. But the very first Vertigo labels have this right here. Right under Vertigo, it says a Philips record company. So that is the very first iteration of the label. The first Black Sabbath album also has this if you get the very first pressing. And I will tell you one thing about the Vertigo albums and Vertigo pressings, they sound phenomenal. The Black Sabbath albums, the UK pressings that I have, are far superior to any of the Warner Brothers US pressings. So this is a big one, super stoked to have it, and not something that I'm super heavy into yet, prog, but I'm definitely getting more into prog. The next album that we're going to talk about is also one that is a little bit left of center for me even. And this one is a German album. And this one is called Witthöser and Westrup. And this album is called Trips and Trauma. And these guys were a folk duo. I'll just show you the cover here because it is pretty outrageous. And you think by looking at this that this is going to be really psychedelic, really far out there, and it is to a degree, but this is what's technically called folk psych. So it has heavy folk leanings, but it definitely has acid and psych leanings as well. So this one is also a kind of a very coveted one. It's on this OHR label, which is a lot of the krautrock label. And yeah, I have listened to this one a few times. I don't know if I'm 100% in love with it. I may end up getting rid of this one, but it is a very cool thing to add to the collection. So pick up is a band called The Move. And I'm gonna go on a little tangent here about The Move, but The Move was a band from the UK, and this one is on the Regal Zonoscope label. In the early T-Rex or Tyrannosaurus Rex albums, Mark Bolan's band was also on this label. It's kind of a cool label. I'll show you right there. But this band was headed up by Roy Wood, and this is kind of pop psych, and this one is very sought after. It's a great album, and the interesting thing about The Move is they had 4 albums, and this first album doesn't have Jeff Lynne on it, but Jeff Lynne became a part of The Move, and he joined the group on their 3rd album, which is the one I'll show you next, which I also picked up, which is called Looking On. And the first album there, I should say, was from 1968. This is the 3rd album. It's called Looking On, and this is the first one that Jeff Lynne, who would later go on to front ELO, joined here. And this one has heavier psych leanings. There's a lot more experimentation in this one. I like this one quite a bit more. And this is UK pressing as well. The label changed for these guys on this one. They're on Fly, which is kind of a fun one. It's got a nice big ugly fly on there. And I think this is my favorite out of all the Move albums. And you can really tell Jeff Lynne's influence. And they went from this album, the 3rd album, I'll quickly show you the 4th, final album with only 3 members. Jeff Lynne, this is the last album. This was a contractually obligated album. So they wanted to start ELO. Roy Wood and Jeff Lynne wanted to start ELO at the same time, but they were contractually obligated to do this last Move album, which is also fantastic. But they wanted to be able to do symphonic music mixed with rock, which is how ELO started. And so right shortly after this came out, Jeff Lynne and Roy Wood got the first ELO album out at the same time. So this is the very first one that came out at 1971, the same as the last Move album there. So he was kind of hot and heavy and ready to rock and roll. And Jeff Lynne is a little bit of a perfectionist, I think, as we all know, and the music he makes is absolutely brilliant. And I will show you, this is the end of the tangent, but the first group before he joined The Move, before they started ELO, was the Idol Race, the Birthday Party from 1968. This is the first band that Jeff Lynne was a part of. And this is Jeff Lynne right here, looking all young and dapper. Very psychedelic album, very fun album. They had 3 albums in total. Jeff Lynne was on the first 2 before he went to The Move. But that's my 6 degrees of separation with Jeff Lynne there. All right. The next pickup we have that I actually got today is called Broth. And the cover looks a little funny on this one. You might think, I don't know, what are we getting into here? But this one came out in 1970. It's on Mercury Records, and this is absolutely fantastic. It has Latin tinges to it. It has psych, it has funk, it has soul, it has jazz. And these guys play just a myriad of instruments. We have guitar, we have brass, we have drums, we have tambourines. We've kind of got it all. And I'll show you the interesting part about this group is they only have 1 album. And they were out of New York, but all these guys came from Puerto Rico and Cuba. So it has a real Santana vibe to it. It's really enjoyable. But here's the group here. If you could see, we got Willie, Gene, Wolf, Charlie, Chino, Jesus, Fernie, and Eddie. So we've got quite the collaboration there. I've just listened to this once, but I will definitely be listening to this several times over because it's a really fun listen. We have Giorgio Moroder, Son of My Father. This is his 3rd album from 1972. And Giorgio is a famous Italian composer, producer. He's a DJ. He's all sorts of things. And this one's kind of a fun album. This is really before his career took off. But Giorgio has worked with many, many, many people. The song "Love to Love You, Baby," he did the music for that and the beat for that. He worked with Sparks, he worked with Janet Jackson, he worked with Donna Summer, Roberta Kelly, he worked with Daft Punk and Blondie. So he has had a crazy career. He's very sought after. People still to this day want to work with Giorgio. And this is kind of a fun curio from his early career. This was an eBay find too. Okay. Now we have Ursa Major. This one's from 1972. It's on the RCA label, on the really thin, flexible Dynaflex vinyl, which is not, people don't love it, but I think it still sounds good. The cover has texture to it, and then we have the constellation on the front here with the bear, which is pretty cool. This is kind of a, it's a little bit of a sleeper. Not many people know about this, but this was a power trio. They only had this one album, but Dick Wagner is the front man for this group, and he was also in a band called The Frost, and they had some success with that band. He didn't have much success with this one either, but this thing is just a scorcher. It's early 70s hard rock. It's awesome. Al Kooper was involved with this one, and if you see this one, I would highly suggest picking it up. It's not a super expensive one. It's not gonna break the bank, but it's definitely it's a killer hard rock album in the early 70s fashion. So next we have one of my LA finds, and it's pretty fitting. It's was a LA band, the Mystic Astrological Crystal Band, featuring Steve Hoffman. This is their very first album from 1967. It's on this GNP Crescendo and Carol label. And this is psych pop, it's psych rock. It's pretty good. The fun thing about this one, and the reason that I picked it up, is because the cover's a little rough, but it's a white label promo, which I was pretty stoked about. And then not only is it a white label promo, but it's also mono, which mono was really being phased out in 67, 68, so makes it pretty rare and pretty cool to have. These guys had a pretty short-lived career. They only had the 2 albums. They were not wildly popular. I'm guessing their name maybe had something to do with that. It's a mouthful. But their second album, which I'll show you here real quick, which I had before the trip to LA, is a little bit better in my opinion. It has heavier psych rock leanings, and the cover's a little bit more fun with this one. This one's called Clip Out, Put On Book. And the fun thing is it has on the inside here all the characters, and you can clip out and you can put clothes on all the band members, which I was lucky and fortunate that the person who had this before me did not go to the lengths to do that. But it's pretty kitschy, it's pretty silly, and the music is to a degree as well, but it's definitely a fun piece of psych history to have. So now we have the one that is in Acid Archives. This one is the Love Exchange, and the Love Exchange were from LA. This album is from 1968. It's on Tower Records, and this is psych rock, psych pop. it's a pretty good album. The gal here, that's the singer, her name was Bonnie Blunt, and she was only 16 years old when they recorded this. Pretty good voice for a 16-year-old. Definitely not a Grace Slick a la Jefferson Airplane, but nevertheless, pretty good female vocals for this one. They, as many of these psych bands have done, have a myriad of cover songs, and then some that are their own too, but Get Out of My Life Woman has been covered by tons and tons and tons of people, but that's a pretty good one. And I'll show you the Tower label here is kind of fun too. I've always liked the Tower label. And then we can read what they wrote in the Acid Archives about it. If I recall correctly, they kind of trashed it a little bit. Let's take a look. This is fun book. It's got photos, a lot of photos of the album cover artwork in here too. So, Love Exchange. Here's an LA Light psych album that is so generic and archetypical sounding that it can be used as an example of a whole genre. The formula embraced by many dozens of young bands and basically all major labels of the time is Mamas and Papas, We5 style vocal harmonies, folk pop with added turned-on lyrics, and acid elements such as sound effects or modal Eastern chord progressions. Peanut Butter Conspiracy were the most high-profile representative of this sound, while obscure flop acts include major rarities like Birmingham Sunday. Love Exchange sit right in the middle of the field with nice candy flavor female vocals, cheesy Sunset Strip organ, and okay songwriting. Meadow Memory is the most psych-flavored song, with Swallow the Sun is a minor California Sunshine pop classic. Despite some of the fuzz and serious aspirations, actual psychedelia or tough 66 garage remains a distant dream due to a typical dated production style better suited to vocal pop groups like The Association. But with the proper expectations, it's an enjoyable 30 minutes in the genre that has its fans. The reissue stereo mix sounds wide and hollow, so a mono original might be maybe preferable. I had the stereo, but it's still a fun one to have. They didn't really have many kind things to say about that particular album, but it's still an enjoyable listen. All right, the last one is Dungeon. So we had everybody loved the metal and the scary album, so we'll end on a scary note for everybody here. This is Dungeon, Fortress of Rock. This was a dark heavy metal from 1985, and it's power metal, it's heavy metal. It was one and done album, and this group here is really close to where we're at. They're from Minnetonka, Minnesota, and which is just a couple of suburbs over from us, so very close. And this is a really fun album. I would liken it to, sounds a little bit like Megadeth, to be honest with you, but they only had this one album. I'll show you the label here real quick as well. They had their own label here, Medieval Records, just for them. This is the only album on the label, but this is a really fun one for me to have, and I've listened to it several times, and it is really good. So I would definitely check it out if you get the chance. And that will do it for my recent pickups. And I will say we have Black Friday RSD coming up. I'm not a big RSD guy, but if you are, I would say go out and support your local record stores. And everybody have a great Thanksgiving, and I'll see you on the next video.